time to add Capcom to the list of Walking Dead video game developers that have bent the knee to localization and overall social progressive trends that are leading to development in gaming that is ruining multiple franchises with this overall political overt focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. This goes back to what we've been seeing in multiple other companies like Square Enix, like a whole host of Western developers that include Xbox that have been developing games with this more political leaning as their focal point rather than making good games. And of course, Capcom came out promoting this part of their development team that is focused on cultural sensitivity and on developing these social progressive trends that have grown prominent in the video game industry. And it's funny to see this actually being promoted as a positive thing when in actuality this is something that is seen as a negative to the majority of gamers. And this started with Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, that kind of spotted out the games that have these consultancy firms that kind of input their own political, social, progressive outlook into video games without any regard to the quality of gameplay and overall story arcs of the characters. And I think this is the thing that we've been seeing growing, this kind of animosity towards this social progressive political outlook on video games, with these activists getting involved with the overall development process, people that don't care about games, who hate gamers that are developing games, being put in prominent positions and authorities within the video game industry. We see this with the attacks from journalists who are supporting sort of these activists because they are activists as well. And we have Capcom promoting this activism that has infiltrated their company with a PR run saying Western localizers should be praised for keeping games culturally sensitive and promoting inclusivity through language and representation. We've seen the results of this in multiple titles. Forspoken, Saints Row, we saw multiple studios go bankrupt with his own ideology that has been implemented through these consultancy firms, through these localizers, that kind of decimated multiple animes as well with their own localizing trend where they kind of forego the storytelling. And now anime publishing companies that own the rights to these animes are now turning to AI translations rather than using localizers because they butchered so much anime and manga with their translations. And we see this divergence in other industries where they know not to use localizers anymore because they butcher the content of their IPs. But we have the opposite trend in video games where Capcom is diving head deep into this localization trend where they're going to butcher their own video games, following activists and political socialist ideologues on what they perceive to be culturally sensitive, when the majority of people playing games have no clue or even care about what they see as culturally sensitive. And I think that's the thing we're going to see with Capcom, which has been a storied franchise. They've delved deep into this socialist ideology, and we all know why they're doing it. They get funding from investment banks. That is the lead indicator and reason that these companies do these cultural sensitivities and localization trends, because investment firms are willing to invest in companies that have DEI departments. So you see this with BlackRock, with Vanguard, where they state in their goals they have ESG scores and standards that they use to funnel 401k investment funds into these companies. So if you reach these scores, you're going to get more money at a lower interest rate, and that is money that any company that is trying to make a profit is never going to resist. And I think that's what's happening with Capcom, where they're bending the knee to ESG and they're letting all these activists into the company itself. And I think we can expect a disastrous outcome to all the games that we love, including Resident Evil, all the JRPGs, of course, Street Fighter, and all these other games that are beholden and part of Capcom. We can expect the worst to happen to them. We already saw it with Street Fighter 6 and multiple other titles where they already had those changes developing, and now they're taking a harder stance with this overall ideology, where I expect the worst to happen to any new Resident Evil game, even past Resident Evil games. I expect them to go in the past games they release and change things because some cultural sensitivity remark from someone in the company itself. So everything is unsafe now when it comes to Capcom, and you have to be aware that nothing you have that is owned by Capcom is safe. They can go back into your library and change things. So I think this is the thing we have to be cognizant of as gamers, where everything is digital now, where they may see something different. This girl's wearing too revealing, this girl's too pretty, we got to make her a little uglier. We have to take Leon and change the story a little bit. He's too masculine. We need to make him a little more feminine for cultural sensitivity's sake. We can see all of these elements happen. We need to change this person's gender, or we need to make them culturally diverse. They can go back in time and change everything. And that's not to say anything about their future titles, where they're definitely going to screw everything up and make everything terrible. So Capcom is in a different place right now, where I think gamers have to be aware that maybe you shouldn't spend your money on Capcom anymore. And I think it's a sad thing to see. It's going to take a long time for this company to actually feel the impact and results. It's going to affect multiple games that we might be looking forward to. Resident Evil 5 is probably going to be no black people in Africa all of a sudden, because black people can't be zombies. We heard the sensitivity remarks from games journalists, and games journalists are an arm or a part of this activism push, so they know everything that is going on within the games development industry. They're kind of interchangeable with the consultancy firm people, because sometimes they get jobs at consultancy firms. So you can tell that is the push they're going to go for with some of these games, and I think that is a sad thing that a lot of people are seeing. But looking at some of the things they say in this promotion for this localizers that are being injected into Capcom, they say the typical things you expect to hear from a social progressive activist that is in gaming. They always talk about seeing the lens of games of localization beyond mere translation. They're diving into the art of cultural adaptation, preserving context, and inclusive storytelling. And that's the thing that we always hear. Inclusive storytelling is just adding any diverse group, even if it doesn't make sense at the time, like having black people in maybe ancient China or Japan or something like that. They have this concept where they enter diverse people in the times where, or locations where it doesn't even make sense. And I think that is the case here. Let's continue again. Character design and development must be culturally sensitive, and that just means uglier women, uglier people, and more diverse looking ugly people. Everything will be ugly basically, and maybe a bald, half-shaved, smirking lesbian. That's the case in a very effeminate men and non-binary individuals that we're going to see more of. Addressing gender-specific language, cultural norms, and diverse perspectives, which means we're going to have no female and male body types. I think that's already happening right now, so that's something that we'll see continue on. No pronouns, everything is gender neutral. Importance of context. Even gameplay elements might need a little cultural remix, and they're them diving into gameplay as well. These are people that don't know anything about games saying your gameplay is culturally insensitive, and they want to muck it up. And that is just the hubris that we're getting from these overall ideologues, these social ideologues, that they want to change the gameplay. These people that don't play games, don't like games, they want to change every part of the game because it doesn't align with their own philosophy. And I think that is the thing that people are just frustrated with. We don't want to see this in video games, but of course, like I said, the influence is too strong because these investment banks are strangleholding these companies and enticing them with these low interest loans, where it is an influential mark where you can't resist it if you are a company. And I think that is the fault that we're seeing now that is being expressed in the video game industry, where we're going to see a lot of companies do this. They're going to fold, they're going to bend the knee to this overall cultural relativism, and we're gonna see a whole host of our sacred franchises, our beloved franchises like Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Street Fighter. We're gonna see a bunch of terrible titles, just like some of the things we saw in the entertainment industry became the Marvel, Star Trek, The Witcher. All these big putting out trash upon trash heap of content because we have the same people, the same ideology controlling what comes out of Hollywood studios. And now we're seeing that happening with Japanese studios, and it's a sad thing. Luckily we have shift up in Korea, but how long will that last? There's just a troubling development in the industry. But I think game players, if you stop buying these games, these companies will have to change their ways, and I'm confident in that at least. But you tell me, what do you think about the situation? What do you think about Capcom becoming one of the Walking Dead companies out here that has bent the knee to localization and overall social ideologues that want to impose their political ideology onto the gamer? You leave your thoughts, comments, like, share, and subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.